Hello, my name is Israel Rivera, and I am doing a book review for my Marketing 6352 class at West Texas A&M University. The book I will be reviewing is called David and Goliath by Bruce Schneier. And in this book, Bruce highlights two major points: the culture acceptance that we don't own our own data and that we don't understand how it's being used, and the difference between mass or nationwide espionage and mass surveillance. So the book is broken up into three different parts. Part one, he talks about mass surveillance and big data and how it's used in our everyday life. In part two, he talks about what's at stake, pointing out that the patient abuse that we're vulnerable to because of the current use of our data. And in part three, he talks about and suggests what we can do about it. So one, he points out that adding security and privacy is very crucial, emphasizes security instead of surveillance, and asking that the government and private sectors are more transparent. So although I do think Schneier brings up a lot of good points, and he's very knowledgeable and very well versed in the topic, I do think that he comes off a tad aggressive in his approach, and he comes off as more of a conspiracy theorist than an expert, right? Even though I do think he brings up some good points. He makes a comment in the book: if something is free, then you are the customer, not the product. That's a chilling way of hearing that. In a Business Insider article from 2020, in January 2020, they highlight the fact that in 2018, which is a few years after the book was written, American companies spent an estimated $19 billion attaining and interpreting customer data. He also argues that the scale and scope of data collection has gone really beyond the necessary and proportionate amounts, and it has some serious implications to our freedom and our privacy. So, and according to an article from New York Times in 2019, they surveyed a group of people. About 70% of Americans believe that most of what they do online is being tracked, and that same group also agreed that they also thought they were being surveyed offline. Right, and then 80% felt that they have very to little control, little to no control of what's being collected. And then also Bruce brings up the mass censorship, right? The Great Firewall of China, not allowing citizens to talk about current events in some countries, which to me is absurd. Other countries may not have the same freedom of speech as we do, but it's something that should be denied to anyone. So a few things I disagree with Schneier. In his book, he highlights that mass surveillance is inherently ineffective and counterproductive. Well, I do agree that mass surveillance can lead to abuse of power and violations of our privacy. There's been quite a few cases where it has helped deter or detect terrorists and other crimes. For example, the use of the surveillance for the Boston Marathon bombing, right? It helped the surveillance footage help capture the perpetrators. However, I do agree that there needs to be some guidelines to make sure that there's no abuse. Also, he highlights that, hey, we can protect and have some privacy if we're knowledgeable, right? So one of the things he says and talks about is ways to prevent and increase your privacy. In the book, it makes it seem like if you're not technological or understand technology, that you can't do that. And that's not true, right? There's lots of technologies, VPNs, encryptions, and it's not rocket science. You can read articles, you can watch YouTube videos. There's all kinds of resources out there that doesn't make it seem like it's an impossible feat. And, some of the things also, of course, the book is dated, right? It was written in 2015 or 2017. Things have changed, right? So maybe a revision to the book would be great. Adding some of the things that Bruce talked about surveillance methods, some of the things he may have used in the book may not be available anymore, or there may be more advanced versions. So even though I do think the book brings up valuable insights into the risks and implications of surveillance, I still think that it does come off a little bit aggressive, and I think it could be more knowledgeable. So just some of my suggestions if the book was revised. I would really have Bruce point out some of the benefits that have come out of this surveillance from certain case studies, or even some other controversies, right? Like the Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. the ongoing concerns and the strong regulations to protect individuals. Even like the facial recognition technology that's a potential for misuse by law enforcement agencies, and how important it is to address some of those things, right? Well, I do think that Schneier had some good points. I would recommend maybe some counter arguments, again, addressing the benefits. And also, this book really reminded me of the Social Dilemma documentary we watched earlier this semester for our test. I think that documentary does come at this topic a better approach. Rather than cause mass hysteria, it really brings it to our level and kind of connects it to what we do every single day. Bruce had lots of good information, lots of good examples and even data, but I still think that maybe the mass hysteria aspect did kind of make me freak out a little bit, right? I almost put on an aluminum hat for this video, but again, overall, the book it opened my eyes to a lot of things I didn't consider, like driving my truck. I didn't think that was something that could be collected as data, or the fact that you don't have to listen or hear what I say, that just what I do, whether I text certain individuals or call certain places, that researchers can track my movements and assume with a pretty good accuracy what I'm doing. Overall, the book was great, and I would suggest it to others to read, but I would say that it could be approached a little bit differently. But overall, good book.